Ah, Earth. Such a beautiful place, honestly. From the forests to the oceans, heck, honestly, even the cities made by humanity are incredible. I mean, really, Earth is an amazing place that a lot of people take for granted a lot of the time. But that does leave a question. I mean, with stuff like global warming, destruction of environments, and all that, what does this mean? Are we unable to save it? Have we destroyed the planet to a point where we can't help it anymore? Are our actions the thing that dooms our planet? Well, the good answer is no. Our planet will survive. Unfortunately, and this is not the best case for us. Our planet will not become a desolate wasteland that life cannot sustain. We've had worse before, and it's very likely we'll probably have just as bad in the future, but that does leave a question. Are we too late? Can we help our planet? Well, the answer is probably. I mean, we can help our planet. We can stop a lot of it from at least getting worse. We know this. But there's always that little thought in me that asked, what would happen if we couldn't? What would the future be like? And so, that question became the Hybrid Project. So I welcome you all now. But what is this world and how are we even going to do it? Well, it's a good thing you asked that question, and if you didn't, well, I'm sorry, but we're getting to it anyway. First off, we need to explain what happened. And in this case, it's quite easy. Due to global warming and other things like that, pollution and basically things that are being caused by humanity, including greenhouse gases becoming so much higher, well, a greenhouse effect took place. And as a result, our world became a greenhouse planet, like it would have actually after the dinosaurs went extinct. Now, is this likely? No. No, it's very hard to say for sure that the poles themselves would be destroyed from our actions. But it's not impossible. Which leads to this world. And for this, it's quite simple. It's a way wetter and hotter world. On average, the world's temperatures would be several times higher than they are even today. Around as high as they probably would be during the early Cenozoic. As I said, not very likely, but hey, this is a fun little project, so we might as well have fun with it. But what does it look like? Well, I decided to make this little map as a demonstration, recoloring each of the continents to give us an idea. For example, North America would be several times smaller than it would be today, including the fact that places like Florida, Louisiana, and all those places are basically underwater. It's honestly terrifying to think, but that means we get some interesting ideas. For example, the fact that the Great Lakes would technically be higher on average and bigger, but all in all, it still is a large landmass. In many ways, the US was less affected by this than most of the other places. The US, Canada, and Mexico, along with the Central America, overall, it did a lot better than what it could have. Now, obviously, I'm not saying that, oh, this isn't going to be bad for life. I mean, Florida is literally gone, including many of the other places around, like the Everglades, and just, unfortunately, we would lose Disney World, but granted, they've been helping speed up the process for a while, so pretty good in my opinion. But overall, this is just the start. South America, for example, would be completely submerged in some areas. The Amazon rainforest basically becoming a gulf inside of the continent, along with other areas in the southern regions being far more consumed by the ocean. It's honestly terrifying. Africa, however, would probably do relatively well, all things considered. Obviously, it isn't going to be good, but it will be a lot better than, for example, with South America or even Europe. Africa has actually, overall, still got most of its landmass, and in a way, could be considered the largest continent on the planet after this moment. But this will still lead to a lot of problems for many creatures, and it won't end well for the environment. Asia, for example, would be devastated in many ways. Many of the countries that we know being submerged. It's a terrifying idea, but it's possible. Australia would actually probably get a bit more rain on average, so that's probably a lot better than what it could have been. But overall, it is still relatively horrible, the conditions that we're looking at. In fact, it's very likely that much of the Australian life would be devastated, if not already thanks to humanity, then it's going to have to struggle even more thanks to this. And then Antarctica, it would be relatively cleared of ice, and for the first time in millions of years, would finally be what it is. Mostly a series of islands, smaller than Australia and Europe. But overall, this does lead into the question, what happens? Well, for this project, I wanted to try something. Now, with most projects, they usually will have just the main animals of Earth, figuring out exactly what happens and what the creatures turn into, but I decided to do something different. As by the name of this series, the creatures will be a little more interesting. As shown with our first hybrid of 5, the mantis dolphin, which is going to be a hybrid of a praying mantis and a bottlenose dolphin. Realistic? Heck no. Interesting? Definitely. And for these creatures, we'll be calling them mantis whales for this series. Mostly to give them a cooler name than just mantis dolphins, but that's besides the point. But for this, they will have an interesting situation, as the people of the future would make these creatures to sort of go into niches that were destroyed by an extinction event during this time. That is obviously thanks to humans. And as a result, they would be put into the Amazon Gulf, where the Amazon rainforest and where the Amazon river system used to be. With them being around the size of bottlenose dolphins today, and being definitely predatory in nature, they'd be an interesting creature with what sort of ways they would be able to catch prey and just live. Another interesting idea is that of the otter gator. These creatures will be placed in that of Myanmar. Oh, crap. Myanmar. I really hope I said that right. I'm sorry if I said your country wrong. And other areas in the Indian subcontinent area of the world. An interesting idea to have warm-blooded crocodilians. And honestly, I find that as something that could become amazing. With them being a splice between a Chinese alligator and an otter, what sort of things could happen? And of course we have an interesting group of creatures, the winged lizards. Being hybrids of just mostly lizards, like the American stripe-back lizard, for example. Honestly, it's just an interesting idea, but we can't just call them winged lizards, so what would we call them? Yep, Dracos. Named after, well, you can probably guess. But being placed in Papua New Guinea and areas like that, how will these creatures develop in this new environment? Probably my favorite idea is that of a four-winged crow, or corvid. I mean, after all, multi-winged animals have been a part of this, well, idea of speculative evolution forever now, and well, we can get a bit more interesting as we don't need to really follow the laws of how most evolutionary ideas work, at least for earthbound animals. And so, in the Slavic nations, the griffins will finally get their chance. Honestly, it's just interesting to think what sort of creatures can come out of this. And finally, probably going to be the mascots of this series, the squid monkeys. Definitely the first type of designs that I really thought of for this series. But we can't just call them squid monkeys, come on. No, instead, squid apes will make more sense. And with these spider monkey squid hybrids, what sort of ideas can we get out of it? What can we do with these creatures? Well, for that, we're just gonna have to wait until the first episode, where we'll be going to none other than South America to see not only the squid apes and the manti whales, but also see what other animals survived after this mass extinction. So with all that, see you then.